So let's get into it a little bit. I think it's apropos to start off this first podcast talking a little bit about what went into the genesis of
Yeah.
us getting together and creating this. We've been friends for about 12 years now, 11
Yep.
years now.
Yep. 12 years a slave.
Yeah, going on 12 years, and we really didn't. If it wasn't for a job that brought us together, I don't think any of this would have happened. Which is crazy because all the years that we've been friends, you've been in my wedding, like you've my wife as long as me. So it's wild, and basically the story. I mean, I'll start it. You tell your side, obviously, but
Yeah.
we were working for Apple back in the day, and in the break room of the Apple store, there would be like these computers. People could have their own little login, their own desktop and stuff. And on the backdrop of my desktop, I had my band's logo. It's this big giant like FP. My band was called Fly Phoenix. Shout out to the guys from Fly
Shout
Phoenix.
out.
Actually, going to be in Nick's wedding this year. My guy who I founded the band with.
Shout out to
So
Nick.
shout
man.
out to Nick.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was sitting there on my computer. I'm doing whatever on my break, watching YouTube and shit. And you looked over and you saw my band's logo on
Yeah.
the backdrop, and you were like, "Fly Phoenix, I know that band. My friend's in that band."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Your friend's in that band?" I was like, "That's my band."
No, I was like, yo, that's my homie's band, and you're like, "Psst, that's my band. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, who's your homie? I'm like, Bryant. And you're like, that's my band.
Yeah.
But it was so crazy because just to kind of add some more context, it's like that was a pretty big Apple store. So it's like
yeah.
hundreds of employees
Yeah.
there. And, sometimes you overlap with people and you may never actually talk to them.
Yeah.
And we didn't know each other, but I just saw that logo and I just came over. I was like, bro, I know that band. And he's like, bro, that's my band. And then from that point forward, I was like, yo, I make music too.
Yeah.
And played some stuff. And we've been rocking ever
Yeah,
since.
and it was crazy because like that day we just started striking up a conversation in the break room and was like, "Yo, we should get together and make a track sometime." And you say like, "Let's get together and make some tracks or whatever" with people all the time,
Yeah.
especially people from the music world.
Especially people in LA.
And like either you might get together with them once and it's cool, but like you don't do it again, or like people flake out or whatever. But like we actually did it, and that first night you brought V over,
Mm.
and V was running
V's
sound.
V is my engineer. Shout out to V Kid.
Yeah.
That's the homie.
And you came over with a bottle of Chivas Regal, and I bought a case of beer, and we just plowed through that bitch like it was no tomorrow.
Yes.
And we were up till like 7 in the morning,
Yeah.
just cranking through jams. And actually, we had a lot of deep conversation for like the first time hanging out, which was crazy to me because we were talking about religion and
Yeah.
all this crazy
Spirituality.
stuff, getting into it, and we didn't really know each other, but it wasn't like we didn't argue. We just like we had fun, and it was a blast, and like time flew by. And I think that was kind of like a great foreshadowing to this moment now, where it's
Right.
like we've had all these amazing conversations over the years. Like I like to call you my intellectual sparring partner.
love
We challenge each other on our views. We don't agree on everything all the time, but
No.
like we always find common ground. And even when we have had conversations that have taken a turn towards towards argument, it's like we always know how to like. It's no hard feelings, and we always like find that middle ground and like
Yeah.
work through it. But it's just crazy to think 11 years ago, like that first night having a conversation, making music would lead to, we've made tons of jams together over the years, but
Yeah.
also like now we have this podcast where we're going to be bringing people on to have conversations like
Yeah.
we had that first night,
Yeah.
which is very exciting.
Yeah. Because as you know, like, I really hate small talk. Anybody that knows me, like, I hate it. I despise it, detest. But when I can, be in a situation, have meaningful conversations with people and, they can challenge me and add insight to, certain things that maybe I have preconceived notions about and, maybe change my stance on it by providing new information. I'm always excited to have those things. And I always like to do the same as well. If I can, shed some type of light in anybody's life, like always excited to do that. So, I mean, it's like a very, I guess, like serendipitous moment, which leads me to want to ask you, like, I mean, because we had a conversation, 11, 12 years ago when we had that initial conversation, and maybe things have changed since then. But what's your stance? Like, is there a God? Do you believe in God? How does that work?
I actually, this is a great conversation because I feel like I'm on a path that's like taking me all over the spiritual map, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, I grew up definitely like going to church. Like our family was like a church family, but like
What kind of church?
we went to like a Catholic school or
Okay.
whatever. I went to public school for education, but went to a Catholic like church school or whatever for when I was younger. And then, but my parents were never like strict about it. They kind of like fell off. Like we wouldn't go to church every week or whatever. We
Mm-hmm.
go on like the holidays and shit.
Right, right.
And so they never like forced us to believe or like follow any specific thing because they were never like super strict on it either. And I actually like look back and I'm super grateful for that because I it's allowed my mind to be more open.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I got older, I kind of went on my own little spiritual path where I went to like a Black Apostolic church with my buddies from high school for a few years, and then like I got into reading like Eastern philosophy
Mm,
books and
yeah.
like went down that route, and yoga and meditation and that kind of stuff became like my church, my spiritual practice personally. And then over the years, I've kind of ebbed and flowed with like what I believe. I definitely had a period that I came out of a couple years ago where I was like definitely hardcore science atheist, almost like
Yeah. I remember that period.
no, I need the evidence, whatever, and like just experiences and like my mind being open to other types of information. I think there's ways of knowing and seeing the world that the material things don't always give you. And we talk about this, and
Yeah.
I'm definitely open to talk about it, but like our psychedelic experiences, and like I had a psychedelic experience with you, and that's definitely been a mile marker along the way that's like helped my spiritual journey too. And I'm in this interesting place where like I definitely believe in the power of psychedelics, and I believe in the power of spirituality. And I would say like my beliefs kind of teeter between like a deist, pantheist type of sort of spirituality, um, but with like I don't even know how to explain it. I think Baba Ram Dass. It's always hard to say. Baba Ram Dass has like there's a great interview where he explains kind of like what's closest I think to like what I kind of like believe, and he talks about the one,
Mm-hmm.
and like the ascending realms of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and how when you start at the base layer of like this kind of base layer human consciousness where we're operating through the physical world, and then the next layer is like personality and identity, and then the next layer is like what meditation takes you to, like the separating the dual nature of like seeing the ego and the body as like separate, but
Mm-hmm.
then kind of evolving into above that to the, he calls it the void, which is like most people are afraid when they get to that point they can't cross the void because it's like it's a void, and it's like the fear holds you back. But if you break through it, you connect to the one, and the one is basically the source of all creation and the universe and everything. And he actually
So you do believe in
oh yeah,
one creator?
not necessarily that it's a intelligent creator in the way that like I guess more classical religions say, like where there's a God that created everything, but
Mm-hmm.
more so it's like um, I guess like a one spirit or consciousness that like everything is a a iteration of
Okay. Okay.
the one. The many is the one.
Yeah.
So like we are just iterations of the one's consciousness.
Okay. Totally.
That makes sense.
So yeah, no, totally. So the one kind of, I guess the word synecdoche, right? The all the parts equal the whole,
Mm.
and the whole equals the parts. So you're saying that there isn't an outside creator that created the whole, that they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's listen. That's much better than when you went through that quasi atheist phase. I was like, what is this?
So I would still say that I definitely still have like a strong foundation of like science, and definitely like in terms of operating
Follow the
in terms of operating in the material world.
Yeah.
Like I think that science is the thing by which we should definitely use a tool that which we should use to navigate through.
Like Fauci, right?
And it's the best thing. No, that's not science. That's
okay.
scientism.
Okay. What's the difference?
Big difference. So scientism, is the dogmatic creation that these corrupt scientists have created, where it's tisms enact doctrines, whereas science follows a process of discovering the world.
Scientific method.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So big difference. And I think people get the two confused all the time because they're like, the scientists are trying to tell us what to do, but the scientists are often following a doctrine that has been prescribed through
corruption,
or even just bias, like it might not even be that like somebody's paying you to tell you like we need this result in a study or whatever, but it could just be like their own bias gets them to that result, and so they miss a lot of the mile markers or the evidence along the way that's like telling them, okay, maybe you should like take a second look at this.
Yeah.
But because they're so bent on that like bias of like, no, I got to be right, or I need it to achieve this result, then once you start to go down that route, you're not following science and you're not following the process,
right?
Which is a tool of discovering the world.
Yeah.
What about you though? What like spiritual religion?
Totally believe in God. I don't know what that means to other people, but God, cosmic consciousness, the creator, the all. I follow a lot of different. I like mysticism.
Mm-hmm. That's something we definitely connect on. We both like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very much into, especially like Christian mysticism. Big fan of Jesus Christ. Big fan. Big fan of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Seven Masters, One Path. It's a book I always try to get you to read.
Oh, I was like, what is that? And I say this every time, right? I'm like, what is that book?
It's a meditation book. It's like the seven of the great spiritual masters and their approaches to meditation.
Got it.
And Jesus is one of the.
Of course, he's the best. So big fan of Jesus Christ, and the teachings, his teachings. But yeah, I mean, definitely spiritual for sure. Yeah. Super important. Like, understanding the different realms of existence, physical, mental, spiritual, even, psychically and emotionally. Those are two realms that also get overlooked, but the main three, of course. And then understanding that I look at the Hermetic principles. Those are really important to me. So
tell people a little bit about that in case they're not familiar.
Yeah, so there's probably a lot of them, but the 7 main Hermetic principles is first mentalism, right? And then there's